Welcome to Telemetry Overlay. We will be discussing drone videos, so let's choose the drone preset for now, but don't worry, you can change this later. You will then be asked to load your video footage. For this tutorial, we have a DJI drone video recorded with telemetry data as subtitles. To achieve that, you will have to go into the camera settings of the DJI app and enable video subtitles or video captions. This might differ slightly between models. In some cases, the data is recorded internally. In some others, the data is recorded as a separate SRT file. Make sure to keep those files alongside the video. We can select both consecutive video parts, drag them into the program, and it will optimize them, which improves playback within the program. You can skip it if you know what you're doing. The final result will be exactly the same. Then, if the files contain any associated telemetry, it will be imported as well. Other drones like the Parrot and AFI also record data into the video, but if that is not your case, we will see how to import external data files later. And these are the gauges that have been created for us automatically based on our drone preset. As you would expect, you can move gauges around, change their size, their colors, and many more visual and value settings. If you want to see what other presets look like, go to Patterns on the bottom left and select them. For example, the aviation preset relates to flight data perfectly as well. We can remove the existing gauges and update the project styles. And this is the aviation look. The skydiving preset is also useful as it displays altitude, vertical speed, and other elevation-based gauges. But of course, you can mix and match your favorite gauges from each preset and save your own pattern to reuse in every project. Let's now go back to the drone preset. And something important to note is that when working with the DJI subtitle data, we have some limitations. For example, the compass gauge you see here is not heading, but bearing. It's not where the drone is looking at, it's the direction where the drone is moving to, even if it moves sideways or backwards. We can clearly see that by finding a point where the drone changes its heading, but its position remains still, and the speed is 0. So the bearing doesn't change. We will see how to overcome this soon, but another limitation is the resolution of the GPS coordinates. If we increase the GPS path gauge and make it stand out a bit more, we can notice that the program automatically applied the smoothing value. If we remove that, the path looks pixelated like in low resolution. The optimal solution for both these problems is importing more accurate data. We can achieve this with the platform airdata.com, which also solves the workflow for drones that do not record the data to the video. So, in addition to DJI, this method will work for brands like Autel, Parrot, Yuneec, Freefly, Wingcopter, and many more. So we'll go to airdata.com, register for an account, and then go to My Flights, My Logs, Upload, where we can find instructions on how to upload the data from our specific drone model. One of the easiest ways, though, is to install the AirData app on the device you are controlling the drone with, for example a phone or a tablet, launch it, log in, and then enable AutoSync, and also sync your existing flights. Save your settings, the flights will sync, and back on the website, go to My Logs, Flights. There you can browse by date, visually check the flight data, and while GPX files are supported in Telemetry Overlay, choosing the CSV file instead will give you a much wider range of gauges. So back in Telemetry Overlay, we'll go to the Telemetry section and either click to load the CSV file or drag it into the program. This will also work with other external data formats like Litchi, ArduCopter, and many more. We will now have a chance to reapply our preset with the new data. And straight away we see a number of new gauges like the thumbsticks, the flight mode, flight messages, battery state, pitch and roll, but also things like camera settings, which are still coming from the internal subtitle data. Smoothing for GPS gauges is not necessary anymore, and the selected compass gauge is now heading and not bearing. If we add the bearing back for comparison, you can appreciate how it's not always the same as the heading. For example, here the bearing is 30 and the heading is 70. So in many cases we will not need the bearing anymore. Now, a very important topic when importing external data is sync. In this situation, because both the internal subtitle data and the external CSV files have compatible timestamps, sync was done automatically. So if we go to the Sync Telemetry tab on the bottom left, the DJI subtitle data is synced to the video start, and the air data is synced to the DJI subtitle data. That doesn't mean sync is perfect though. If we look for an easy to identify event, like the drone flying forwards, we can notice that the thumbsticks don't do exactly what the drone is doing. They're delayed by a couple of seconds. So we can compensate that with the offset controls, 2 seconds, and this is not a positive offset, it's a negative one. Now things look closer, but not perfect yet, so let's fine-tune this. 3 seconds is too much, so by removing some milliseconds, we should be there. And it looks good enough. You can follow a similar process to sync your data from scratch, but if you need more reference data, you can go to Patterns and load the Sync Assistant preset. But make sure to check out the dedicated tutorial on synchronization for more syncing strategies that might work better for your use case. Back to the default. Sometimes if data is not synced automatically, it might be because of a problem with time zones. To see if that is the case, go to Add Gauge, and from the basic ones, select Time and Date. This one displays the air data time, so we will label it accordingly. And display the title. Duplicate it. Rename it as DJI. And select the DJI subtitle data for it. They look the same, except for the 3-second offset. But if they looked like this, with a difference in hours, it could be an indication that your internal data has the wrong time zone. Let's see how to fix that. We'll go to Settings on the top right, scroll down to Advanced, and change Trust Video Time Zone. The reason this could be off is some cameras, including some DJI drones, especially the old ones, do not record the time zone correctly, so the program has to assume local time. With some models, the time zone is correct and you have to trust it. Another setting to pay attention to is DJI Trust Video Time. This option exists for 2 reasons. The first being that even with the correct time zone, video times can be inaccurate, and also the fact that air data files can have information on when the video started recording, which can be enough for a good sync if you only record one video in each flight. So the rule of thumb here is, if you record a single video per flight, leave this off. If you record multiple videos each flight, leave this on. And with the air data source correctly in sync, we now have some interesting streams, like flight messages, but you may know that the air data logs contain many more columns than this. So another interesting setting is Read Extra Streams. Once that's on, we can re-import or reinterpret the data. Then go to Add Gauge, Custom, and select from a range of styles, for example, Custom Digital. We will be able to select one column from the many in the CSV. For example, let's pick satellites, the number of GPS satellites the drone is seeing, and let's restyle this a bit. And this is how this looks. Pretty good signal that day. To see some more use cases, let's start a new project. In our videos folder, we have a GoPro file as well from an FPV flight. Let's import that one as well, because it also contains internal data like GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, and much more. This also happens with other GPS-enabled cameras like Insta360 ones, and the preset works great with some small differences. But let's load a different preset, Crash Reconstruction, just to visualize some of the other gauges the GoPro enables, like gyroscope and accelerometer. Just be aware that the GPS antenna in GoPros is not as reliable as the one in some drones, so you might lose some of the data when the drone is upside down, and altitude values might not always be accurate. Once you're happy with your project, just go to the export section, and usually the default settings are good enough for publishing your video. But there is a specific tutorial on export settings if you want to go deeper. Press export, this will take a bit, so here's some finished footage. I hope this was useful. Feel free to ask any questions and see you in the next one.